space behind you. If he decides to talk.
We agreed that the Steelers are going to win.
Are you yes?
And now he doesn't have a real opinion on Sheets or Wawa. He doesn't have a lot of experience on that. But of course we know Sheets is the right one, and the Steelers are going to win.
Democrats and liberal media have literally just lost their minds. They cannot comprehend the fact that uniting America meant people on both sides of the aisle come together and come up with solutions to make America better. But they're infuriated with John Fetterman because he met up with Pete Hegseth, who's literally going to be the Secretary of Defense. That's who Trump appointed. That's what America wants. And they just cannot fathom the fact that somebody would do that. But before we get into that, make sure that you subscribe to RTM News because it ensures to YouTube that you are enjoying our videos. So then they will continually show up in your feed and then they'll push it out to more people as well. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Space behind you. If he decides to talk.
We agreed that the Steelers are going to win.
Are you yes?
And now he doesn't have a real opinion on Sheets or Wawa. He doesn't have a lot of experience on that. But of course we know Sheets is the right one, and the Steelers are going to win. And now also the news is that we actually had a meeting. We had a meeting. We had a conversation, and that's what happened. And that's where we're at. There really is no new news after that conversation.
Are you supportive of him? How do you evaluate?
I'm not really sure. That, like I said, there's not really any new thing. We had a conversation, and that's part of the process.
What's super annoying to me is when they say, are you supportive of him? What do you think about him? Like, first of all, you already have your opinions on what you think he is, or just because Trump appointed him. It wouldn't really matter if Trump picked a known name, nobody knew who he was. He has a solid background. He has all the qualifications. It wouldn't really matter because Trump endorsed him or appointed him for that position, and you guys would just have something negative to say about it. So when they ask him, do you support him? That's not even the right question. The question is, how are you guys going to work together to secure our country, keep us safe? Because that's the intention for why you would meet with someone who's going to be the Secretary of Defense, correct? Like, it's, oh my gosh. It's so disingenuous. You don't mean that. You're trying, it's all to cause division. That's one thing about mainstream media that kind of sucks nowadays, or I mean, nobody trusts them anyway, but what sucks about it is the fact that you could really be providing information to the American people that is valuable, that is helpful to direct us in, what ways to go and just be honest about what's going on, and they don't do it. It's just so annoying. And I love how he just came out with, oh, we're talking about who's gonna win between the Steelers and what. Like, he's just kind of like, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. I don't feel like I don't want. He's like being condescending to the media, and like, I don't understand why people are getting super upset with him for meeting with him. Although we all had many things to say about him when he was winning his election, he's been seemingly reasonable and willing to communicate and work with the other side, which is something that we should be doing. I don't know why people are throwing a fit at anybody who wants to actually mend our country. That's something that should be done. And that doesn't mean trust. But you can at least extend an olive branch and allow him to actually prove himself that he actually wants to do something significant in terms of uniting the country, uniting the parties, and getting us back on track.
And that's the thing. I'm going to follow the process. I'm going to listen to what my colleagues on the other side continue to say and how they evaluate, and that's just part of the process.
Are you considering voting for him?
You know, so it's just like, it's a conversation.
Are you open to supporting him?
What's crazy is what he said is so simple and true. It's like, it's just a conversation. This is something that the president-elect of the United States did. He appointed Pete Hegseth to this position. Obviously, I have to vote for this position. Maybe I should do my due diligence and actually trying to get to know the guy and seeing what he wants to do, see if there's some agreements. Although we may disagree on a lot of things, maybe there's a couple things that we do agree on and that we could like work together towards, because it's very likely that this person will be put in this position of power. And me, as a responsible person who wants to be honest and true and communicate with my constituents on the decisions that I make, like I said, do my due diligence. But no. You guys, oh man, it's so freaking annoying. I cannot stand the media. They're so disingenuous and just annoying. There's no other way to put it. They're just annoying, and I'm grateful that they've lost their power. At the very least, they've lost their power. People don't really rock with them and what they say anymore. They take everything they say with a grain of salt, if they take it at all, if they even listen to any of it. I know I certainly don't. except for when I'm providing all this information to you guys, because it's fun. I mean, it is fun. It's funny, especially that people don't believe it anymore. It makes it like super engaged. It's great. It's just like entertainment. It's like watching like reality TV. We know it's not real, but it's just entertaining. You guys can't stop yourself from watching. But we have another video of him talking to another reporter, and I'm sure you're gonna love what they have to say too.
But I think it's an opportunity to have a conversation. I'm not sure why it would be controversial to anybody. If he's the individual who could potentially be the next Secretary of Defense, I think it's, I'm not just the senator for Pennsylvania for my voters or Democrats, it's for all of us. And now we have received a lot of support, calls into our office saying, hey, we have a conversation. So I'm just doing my job. I see that.
So he's saying he's received a lot of calls of support to his office, and he's doing his due diligence to communicate with the guy who was appointed. I think that it's just blowing my mind even still that this is newsworthy. Senator speaks with person who Trump has appointed to be in a position where he gets a vote on. Why? It's like the culture has been so divided that it's like you're the enemy if you go speak with the person who's still supposed to represent the country like you are. Just maybe they have a different perspective and viewpoint on how to go about that. You literally, your job is to work together, and yet it's like, oh, you talk to him, oh, you might actually have some agreements. You might actually like what he has to say, or maybe you don't at all, but you're willing to communicate with him. You might not like him at all, but you're still willing to communicate with him. Like, oh, people are ridiculous. And then we have Pete Hegseth as well talking about what his experience with Fetterman. Fetterman was kind of like very aloof in like, we had a conversation, I had a conversation. I'm willing to have a conversation because, if you say anything other than that, his whole party will like rip him to shreds and like vote him out. They might incite a coup and do what Nancy Pelosi did to Joe Biden. But we have with Pete Hegseth, who actually has a more positive outlook on the conversation. Not that John Fetterman had a bad one, but he's just like, yeah, well, you'll see.
I thought you were getting the hang of this by now.
More time with the press.
How did the meeting go?
It was a wonderful meeting. He's thoughtful. He's independent-minded. Defense, as I've said, is not political. National security is important to Democrats and Republicans. A great conversation with the senator, and that's all I'm going to say.
Are there any other Democrats that you talk to?
Second door, sir. Sorry, guys. There's space room, guys.
Do you do away with the abortion travel policy at DOD?
The crazy thing about this is the fact that he probably had many disagreements. He probably had a conversation with a lot of contention and like, hey, well, maybe I think we should go about it this way. I think we should go about it this way. And yet he was so respectful by him. I had a great conversation. He's very independent. He's an independent thinker and yada, yada, yada. All this praise, all this glory for a guy who probably doesn't agree with him on like 50% of things, if not more. And yet he was still so willing to just, have the conversation and speak well of the guy after. This is how things should be done. I think our first taste of something similar to that was, regardless of your thoughts on Tim Walz, his debate with J.D. Vance. Like J.D. Vance obviously bodied him, but he was very respectful. They were kind. Although there were like jabs, they were nowhere near the extent that the temperature that politics have been the last 8 years. But another thing that's surprising to me is that Democrats would be enraged by this, or shocked, or confused by this meeting specifically with John Fetterman, because he's been very vocal in the past about his, disagreements with elements of what the Democratic Party has done, or just the way things have gone. I'm going to play a clip here from Joe Rogan. This was before the election, I believe, and he was speaking with him about, even the Russia hoax. He was like, I didn't really believe that, and it seems like he's at least open-minded to being genuine in his approach. So let's check this out.
The legitimate outsider. This is the appeal. The appeal is that people think that the system is completely rigged and it's captured by money and special interests and enormous corporations, and that here's a guy who's outside of this system completely, and the evidence of that is how the system turned against him, and how you got to see people on television every night talking about Russiagate, talking about how he's a puppet of Putin, talking about the Steele dossier, talking about all these different things that turned out to not be true. And it further
I never bought into some of that kind of stuff, because if anyone that spent any time on the ground in one of those states, it's very clear that wasn't because of some small kinds of tweets and things like whatever.
It's pretty stupid to say that. Also, just to reference what he said, what Rogan had said about how he's like a Russian puppet and all this stuff. Literally, Putin endorsed Kamala. He endorsed him. He knew that if Biden or Kamala stayed in office, that it meant that, I can continue this war and keep doing what I'm doing. And he could take over Ukraine if he really wanted to. And I don't know Russian politics or nothing like that. I'm not that extensive into the foreign policy, but it's like he endorsed Kamala, so it proves that her being in office was a benefit to what his end goal was. And Trump being in office disrupts that. And then also keeping on top of that, Trump said, had I been in office, that war is not happening. Are you kidding me? Essentially, in the kindest way ever, I had a leash on that man. He wasn't going to do nothing without my say so. And so that's another reason why we voted him into office. So it's absolutely insane. The Russia hoax thing, especially knowing that Russia endorsed or Putin endorsed Harris.
It's undeniable, and also remember, like he was, the Republican Party was like, hey, this is a joke, and I remember Jeb Bush, and he had like $100 or $200 million, and he just went by, he ticked him off. And even then, people thought he was going to win, but he did. But remember, though, overall, though, that was 75,000 votes. That's a mathematical, think of that, 100.
Yeah, it's great. We all know the collusion thing wasn't real. Nobody. We knew. Some people were a little confused on that fact, but we knew. And here's the thing: it's not like what Pete Hegseth said. It's not a political issue. The Secretary of Defense is the head of the U.S. Department of Defense and is in charge of making sure the military is strong, organized, and ready to protect the country. They advise the president on military matters, they oversee the Army, the Air Force, and other branches, and help decide how the U.S. uses military power around the world. They make big decisions about the nation's defense and security, and yet people. This is not political. This is not a partisan issue. This is something we should all be, standing behind. I don't think it would have even mattered that much, depending on how extreme a Dem is, if they were in that position as well. Because if your goal is just to make sure that we're safe, and that's what you want, then it shouldn't have been a problem. But people are dumb. People are ridiculous. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you are subscribed. Comment down your thoughts below because I really want to read them. John Fetterman is making some shifts in the political sphere, and I'm excited to see what happens going forward. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.